Hello YouTube, this is Reverend Evan Sackett. Sometimes I feel like I am repeating myself when I go on and on and on about love and try to give advice. But if you notice, if you've ever given anybody advice in your life, it's always easy to give advice, but sometimes it's not always easy to follow your own advice. I guess I've always dreamed of being what I refer to as a real man. A real man, and I was taught that a real man always has the answers, takes care of his kids, and is always there and takes charge of the situation as a leader in a sense of the word. And, you know, I'm 25 years old, almost 26. And, you know, I mean, I've been brutalized throughout my life. I've had people put me down. I've had people take advantage of me. People use me. And I've been told many, many times to man up. But I'm not afraid to show emotion in any sense of the word. But I do focus too much often on what other people think of me. And people tell me, you don't need to worry about what other people think of you. But, I mean, how hypocritical is that? If you think about it, probably 70 to 80 to maybe 90% of what we do in our lives is motivated by what other people think about us. I mean, when you get up in the morning and you do your hair and you put on your clothes and women, when you put on your makeup, why are you doing that? If there wasn't anybody on the streets to see you, would you still do it? Of course not. You're doing it because you want to look good in public in front of other people because you're afraid of not looking good in front of other people, you know, which indicates and certainly implies that you care what other people think. And why does somebody want to drive a nice car? Why do they want to wash their car? Because they want it to look nice. Why do they want it to look nice? Because they want it to look nice so other people can look at it and see that it is nice. And if there were no other people to look at it, what difference would it make? So that right there, the concept of having a nice car and the concept of washing it all goes back to caring about what people think. How much money you have, what kind of house you have, how well you take care of your house. Why would you want a nice house unless it was to show off to other people, to say, hey, look at me, I'm successful. And that is the main reason why people want to be successful, so they can show their families or their friends or the people that insulted them throughout their lives, hey, look at me, look how successful I am and how unsuccessful you are. So it pisses me off when people sit there and say you don't need to worry about what other people think. But in reality, you need to be concerned with what other people think. I mean, not all the time, but with certain factors, certainly, yes. But strangely, at one spectrum, I am concerned with what other people think, but at another spectrum, I'm not. I'm not afraid to admit what I am. I mean, anyone who's watched my videos or read my blogs, I mean, I hide nothing. Everything that I've ever done is put out there for the world to see. Everything. Everything from my drug addiction to the rape that occurred to me when I was 14 years old, to the bullying that I suffered as a child, and an interesting incident that happened to me the other day. This is not really interesting, but one bully in particular I remember from the 8th grade, and this guy had it down pat. This guy was like it reminded me of one of those guys in prison that had it down to an art on how to take somebody and make a bitch out of them. And this is what he would do. He was in the popular crowd. I mean, he hung out with the popular guys, played football. He was a relatively popular guy. You know, dated some of the hot girls, not a lot of them, but he dated a few of them. And so he was with the in crowd. This is what he would do. He would go and take someone who was relatively unpopular, and he would welcome them into his group, and he would hang out with them all the time. He started out very nice, you know, being their friend, hanging around with them, talking to them, inviting them to wherever he went, and, you know, whenever they would go to the football games or whatever, he would hang out with them. And he would very slowly start working his way to being more and more and more ruly over them, and in the end, he had them doing his homework and had them bringing him money to school and all kinds of shit. Well, this motherfucker tried this shit on me, and I mean, I was so naive at the time. I can't believe how naive I was. I mean, in the 7th grade, I was a straight A student. There was no reason for me to be so fucking stupid and naive. But here I was in the 8th grade, and I was stupid enough to believe that this guy had serious connections and that he was a gangster and all of this. And I actually believed it. I can't believe that I was so stupid, so naive. And, I mean, I have been so naive throughout my life, you know, not wanting to admit the truth and whatnot. But anyway, back to the point, you know, he bullied me and, you know, humiliated me and made an ass out of me. And in the end, I learned that he died 3 weeks ago. He overdosed. So I outlived him. And the last time that I saw him, he was an inmate at the local jail working on building a new jail that they just built here where I live in my hometown of Kingston. And people, you need to realize, everyone, and this is not just focusing on a certain group, this is everyone who watches this video. We all have horror stories in our lives. There is not one person on the face of this earth who has not suffered brutality, who has not been taken advantage of, that has not been raped or in some other way used or abused or suffered. That's a simple way to put it. There is none that have not suffered, and suffered a lot. When you sit down and listen to people, and if they'll talk to you about it, you would be amazed at the horror stories people have. You know, women have often told me about horrible rape stories that they've endured. I've heard war stories. I've heard stories about guys that were in Vietnam, World War II, drug addiction. Everyone has their horror story, and usually many of them. So, if you want to move on with your life, the worst thing you can do is try to forget about it, because people try to bury it, they try to forget it, they try to run away from it, and the only way that you're ever going to get over it is to face it, to think about it, to bring it up, to tell others. And that's how I've gotten over the trauma that's happened to me in my life. You know, take it, make something useful out of it. You know, if you think about it, one person's horror, I mean, your horrible suffering would make a great story. Think of it that way. And that is the beauty of being a writer, is that you can take any incident that's happened in your life and make it positive. I can recall one author. I don't recall his name, but he was addicted to drugs, and he wrote a book about his drug addiction and became a millionaire. Had he never been addicted to drugs, he would have never written this book. So it really goes back to, you know, taking something negative and making it positive. You would not believe what you can make positive, the negative things that you can make positive in life if you try and put your mind to it. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. But the interesting thing is that we all think that we've suffered more than anyone else. People always say, if you only knew what it was like to be me, if you only knew what it was like to be me. And it's all part of being human. I mean, in the end, we all end up dead. I mean, we are so determined, and we are, as Americans, we are so eat up with this concept of living the perfect life, of going to college, getting a nice job, having a family, having a nice home, having a 3-car garage. And I've said this time and time again, Americans are so determined to look successful, and this goes right back to the idea of caring what other people think about you. People are so determined to appear successful that they will go into extremely large amounts of debt to buy homes they can't afford, to buy cars they can't afford, to look successful when in fact they are not successful. I mean, in my mind, the big home and the nice cars should be like a trophy of what you've accomplished. But people don't want to go through the trouble of earning it. They want to get it on credit. They want to get it on loan, so they can go in extremely large amounts of debt, and then in 10 years be completely fucked and end up living with their parents. I've seen it happen time and time again. 34-year-old husband and wife have 2 kids, live in a beautiful home with a swimming pool, have 2 cars. Come and take a look at them when they're about 37, 38. Both of them are going to be living at their parents' home, dead flat broke, and an extremely large amount of debt, and in the middle of a fucking divorce. Happens every time. So, the point to this video is focus. Don't run for the goal so fast. Don't live your life too fast. You might turn around and regret it.